Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast, Candelore's Barking Beauties, with 5 locations throughout the region, and His Place Coffee Community and more here in Menneson for hosting us.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Candelore, owner of Candelore's Barking Beauties, where our salon is your salon. We have 5 convenient locations, no appointment needed. All breeds welcome. Any size dog. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We have 5 convenient locations: Elizabeth, White Oak, Finleyville, Monongahela, and Irwin. Love to have you visit us.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Nick and I are on the road again. We're here at Chicco Bachello, a really cool new coffee shop in Canonsburg, PA. And we have a great show today. Today we're going to discuss diversity and inclusion and bias and discrimination, actually, in the workplace. And so joining me today are my colleagues, my work family, a good piece of it from GPI, Greenman Peterson Incorporated. And to my left is Ashley Reed, Diane Altland, Tyler Watts, and Joel Lofstrom down at the other end of the table. Thank you guys for joining us today. I think that I know you guys are all busy and taking some time out of your busy schedules and actually getting permission from somebody at the table to take some time and talk with us since she is our boss. But no, thank you for joining me. I sincerely appreciate it. And this is the topic that I've kind of brought you in to talk about today is a little bit difficult to talk about at times, but I'm hoping that our relationships are what I believe they are, and we can have an open and honest discussion around these topics because they are front and center if you look at everything that's happening in our country today. So what I'd like to do is just go around the table and have you guys just briefly introduce yourself. You don't got to get into titles or anything like that. That's really not pertinent to what we're trying to do. But just talk a little bit about, where you came from and how you got to where you are today. And we'll start with you, Ashley.
All right.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Ashley Reed. I was born and raised about 30 miles east of Cleveland. Grew up on Lake Erie with my family up there. I went to school at University of Akron. And knew right away I wanted to be in civil engineering when I went to school. Math and science were always my strong suits, my passions growing up, and that was the most logical way to apply them to everyday life. So
Okay.
I went to engineering school. I got my first job out of college in West Virginia, and I lived and worked down there for about 5 years before I came up here to the Pittsburgh area to work for GPI about 2.5 years ago. And I've been here ever since.
Excellent. Thanks. Welcome. Diane?
So I didn't want to be an engineer. I thought I was going to be a doctor. Went to school at University of Pittsburgh for chemistry, figuring that I would go into medical school, and realized my junior year that I didn't really want to be a doctor, due to the politics of medicine at the time, and so I was going to graduate with a degree in chemistry, realized I didn't really want to do that either, and then decided to stick around for chemical engineering. So, but when I graduated, there weren't a whole lot of jobs in chemical engineering, especially in the Pittsburgh area. So I got a job doing environmental engineering, which kind of, led me here. Multiple firms later, I've done industrial wastewater, I've worked for a utility, I've done manufacturing work. So, been GPI, it'll be 4 years in a month, so yeah.
Excellent.
That I've been here.
Tyler?
Well, for me, I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania myself, and I didn't know that I wanted to do engineering, actually. I knew that I wanted to be creative and that I love math and science, but I didn't know how to combine those things together until my 10th grade math teacher took us on a field trip to Falling Water, Frank Lloyd, right?
Oh.
And
Okay.
she made that connection for me, like architecture,
Sure.
engineering, it's math,
Right,
So
right.
I was like, I want to be an architect. But, I wanted to keep my options open, get a more broader degree. So I went with civil engineering. And so, after I graduated, it took me about a year to get a job in the industry. I was really surprised at that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated with some experience, but nonetheless, I did get that job, that position, and I learned a lot from that. I worked there for 5 years, doing water, wastewater management work, and so now I'm with GPI, and it's been only I think I'm on my third
fourth,
week.
I think.
Fourth week? Okay.
Yeah.
4
so
years, 4
I guess
weeks.
it's flying by. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, 4 weeks. So I'm enjoying it.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you. It was that you were a key hire for us because of your skill set. And big deal for us. Mr. Lofstrom, sir.
Do I look at them or over here at you? My name's Joel.
The spotlight is on you. This is your moment. Don't screw it up.
Yeah, my name's Joel. Born and raised here, Salzburg, Pennsylvania. So very, very small, conservative sort of town. Grew up, I guess kind of farm, hillbilly-ish. But at no point did I really even know what I wanted to do at all. So I joined the U.S. Army, spent 6 years in the Army, going through Iraq and all that stuff. And whenever I got out, to be honest with you, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was in school for criminal justice, working several jobs though that were more production and operations oriented, and kind of just fell in love with. Managing and people and trying to figure out, problems, which led eventually into startup companies. So I've worked at a few startup companies, high risk, high reward.
There you go.
Problem is I think maybe more the risk on it. So the companies didn't work out, but learned a lot through all of that. And especially, you're involved in every part of the organization,
Right.
Everything from just basic daily operations to hiring, recruiting, retention. Your hands are in all of it, and I just love it. So
That's the definition of entrepreneurship, right?
yeah. So, I've been with GPI here for, 2.5 years now. Have absolutely loved it. The challenges keep coming, and I'm literally doing exactly what I love doing. So
That's excellent. That is excellent. And I think that all of us can agree that GPI is a very progressive firm. It's employee owned. It's a large enough firm that it can be competitive with the biggest firms in the country. But we're also at a level where we can be nimble and we can compete regionally and even locally, as we represent, and we're heavily invested in this community we're at right now, is Canonsburg. And as you can attest, you're building their expansion of their wastewater treatment plant as we speak. And GPI prides itself on diversity and inclusion and a family, people first, people centric culture. And I think we all feel that, and maybe from different ways, right? 'Cause I'm the non-engineer of this group, right? When I got out of high school, if you'd have asked me what an engineer did, I would have said drive a train on a railroad, because that's what one of my grandfathers did. He was a railroad engineer. He drove a train. And I kind of stumbled and bumbled into this line of work out of necessity. Had to leave college for a variety of reasons, and got a job at PennDOT, right? So just kept going and eventually found my way into the private sector, into consulting, and 40 years later, I'm sitting here, and now I'm the OG, right? Which is still, I'm still trying to get my head around, being old, but but it's a blessing, right? And my dad always told me that if you're really, really lucky, you'll get old. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm blessed. So let's talk a little bit about inclusion. I mean, have any of you, and just speak up. I'm just going to throw some things out there, and you guys speak freely, right? The inclusion is it's always diversity and inclusion, but I think the important part of that piece is the inclusion, right? So you can be a diverse company, you can hire women, you can hire people of color, you can do all of those things, but if you don't include them, if that inclusion piece is not part of that, you're just whistling in the wind, right? So what have you guys experienced? And I'm really particularly for the women here. What have you experienced in fighting for that inclusion piece, to be included? Anybody?
At GPI specifically?
No, just in over the course of your career.
Well, I guess I'll start. Being a black woman in this industry is not really a typical, face that you see in construction specifically too.
Right.
I work with a lot of, contractors who are majority, white males. Even, I think I really can't remember. I can probably count on my hand the amount of black people I've worked with in my career so far, really, like personally.
On the construction side
On
of
the construction side
Yeah.
of the business. And being a manager in this space and having to direct people like that, you kind of have to fight for your, the respect in a way. And so you need your company to be behind you in that sense as well. So, I think you just have to be kind of a special kind of person, I guess, to be able to deal with the adversities, to be able to continue to fight through them. I don't know.
I think you have to be resilient, right?
Yeah.
Because you probably get knocked down as many times as you're willing to stand up, because you had an uphill climb from the very beginning, okay? Being a woman and being a woman of color, right? So that's, right there. There's two things that in that side of our business are held against you.
Right.
They are pushed out there as a negative.
Yeah.
So before anybody even gets to your education, to your ability, to your knowledge, you got to fight through those first two things before you can even get to that.
Right. So you're fighting for that respect, that appreciation for what who you are, what you're here to do, and so being considered, a leader or a manager or whatever, you have to fight for that inclusiveness. Basically.
Especially when you're young, too, because I've experienced that, and I am not afraid to, tell people, look, I know I don't have gray hair, but I know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And I don't always get people to buy into that and trust that I know what I'm doing. I don't know if that's also because I'm a woman, who knows, but I am young in this industry too, but that is a great point, because I've had to deal with the same thing and trying to win people over when you're there and you're in the position of power and management and you're there to direct people, but they don't always want to listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you and I had a discussion yesterday with another woman, and she said, and which I thought was kind of powerful, she said, if you do good work, it doesn't matter. Right? So
It's a strong point. It's powerful.
Because and Canonsburg's a perfect example. I was their project manager. Well, no, I was a project engineer working for a different company, and the project manager left, and I had been doing all the work, and the chairman of the department, or chairman of the authority at the time, said, you need to bring a gray-haired man in. And so we brought a gray-haired man in, and I still did all the work behind the scenes.
Right.
But I guess the happy ending to that story is that 2 years later, that same chairman said, I want you to come work for our authority.
Yeah.
Right.
I want you to be our manager. So it's that perseverance through it, and it's doing the good work, letting stuff roll off your back sometimes that you just, to push through. If you're talented, people will get past that.
They'll come around.
Yeah, they do. But unfortunately, a lot of people, not just women, but a lot of people, that's where they give up, right? And you might, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, but when you start talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 times where you're just punched in the gut, right, and told to go sit over there and just, it wears a lot of people out, and our industry loses a lot of people because of that. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think we lose a lot in engineering in general, not just in civil. I think across the board, when you look at women in engineering, if they keep getting that pushback, eventually they realize their skill set will be used somewhere else where it will be appreciated, right? So they leave engineering.
That's exactly right.
And so I think as a manager, that becomes my job to really to listen to the employees, but also make a space for them to be able to move up. Because I guess I had men who were allies, but I didn't really work with any women, right? When I started, there was one woman project manager in the entire company.
Wow.
Sure.
300 people.
And that's something that I've been extremely lucky to have is women like Diane. I had another boss at a previous employer that was a woman in a leadership position, and because of everything you guys have persevered through and gone through to get to where you're at now has paved the way for my generation.
Sure.
And I see myself represented in leadership positions in big engineering companies, and that's just an incredible thing to see and know that it's possible if that's something I want out of my career.
Right.
And I'm just very lucky to have people like Diane in my life that have been those role models for me.
And those role models, those examples on that side of things are they're still few and far between, but there's more now.
Right.
And I think one of the things that, we have a shortage of young people coming into the industry, right? And we particularly have a shortage of young women coming into the industry. And my personal opinion is that we're not doing enough to get out and do the outreach to these kids at a young enough age, right? I'm a grandpa, right? And I have grandkids that are in 8th grade right now, right? The twins. They're both incredibly bright, could literally be, at this point in their lives, anything they want to be. And in spite of the fact that I've been in this industry their entire lives, they don't have any idea what it is, nor do they would, it's never, not even on their radar for engineering, right? And I think that if young people in particular in our industry, I'm talking to the two of you right now, right? Go into a middle school, right? And talk to 8th graders, talk to 9th graders and 10th graders. I think we can start to do better and lay the groundwork. I mean, when was the first time you guys thought about engineering? Now, you said you came to that very, very early.
I was lucky. I was fortunate. When I was in high school, I was in AP math and science classes, and there was several universities across Ohio that would come into our high school and talk to us about engineering and engineering programs. And I don't know if that was their choice, they came in, or if we just had great teachers that invited them in to come talk to us. And I remember in my AP physics class specifically, University of Cincinnati came in, and they really pushed women in engineering too. And there I am, a junior in high school, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where you go when this is your interests. That makes perfect sense to me. So I was really lucky to have that exposure in high school. And that's probably the moment I realized, because before that I didn't really know much about engineering. But that was early enough that I could have the forethought to choose a good engineering school and get a great education.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent.
For me, I mentioned it was really like 10th grade. I had that one who was my favorite math teacher, and she took us on a field trip to Falling Water, Frank Lloyd Wright. And I fell in love with that. Because I always loved art, but I love math and science too. So I was just like, it's crunch time. You gotta figure out what are you gonna do. So it's a lot of pressure actually at that age to try to figure things out.
Now, Joel, you and I are not engineers, right? We've come to this from different directions, and these three, they've all gone through engineering school and kind of taken the traditional engineer's path. But you, much like me, did not do that. You got here from a different direction, right? You didn't go to engineering school. You didn't come out with the intention to be an engineer, but yet you are in a leadership role in a very responsible role in the construction industry. Right now, you're managing the construction on a $60 million wastewater treatment plant project. So tell me a little bit about how did you think 5 years ago that you'd be sitting where you are today managing a $60 million project?
No, I think 5 years ago, I always took on challenging roles, and I think it was at the time I was kind of falling in love with taking on more responsibility. So, and admittedly, I think before 5 years ago, I started working with Diane at one of the first startup companies. And
that's not the one that you guys blew up, is it?
It's not the.
No, we
that's
did.
a different one. Oh, that was number two.
No, we blew up two.
Oh, you blew up two.
So yeah, that was the first one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, together.
Title, you'll notice that's why I sit near the door out there at the office, so I can get out quick.
Together we blew up two. Well, together we blew up one, and then she helped me fix the other one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
But
we only blew up one.
no, I was, still definitely trying to figure out what it was I was going to do career-wise because, I didn't have that engineering degree.
Right.
But, any organization that I've been in, I get promoted pretty quickly. Almost, I think, like aggressively quickly. I mean, I fly through the ranks. It wasn't even maybe a year and a half into Aqueon, and I was the supervisor over two plants.
Okay.
I was. I
That's
guess,
just how good I see talent.
Yeah,
It's true.
So, but it was to me. I was looking at chaos and low-hanging fruit, and it's like as long as you're a solution-oriented, positive-minded, okay, I don't care whose fault it is. Let's move forward. I think the world's your oyster, and then it's just a series of proposals after that. Like, hey, listen, I see a problem. Instead of complaining about it, we'll offer a solution. And I think I started doing that. I think the first time I ever met Diane, it was. at this startup company, battery startup company, and she came in as the new manager, and there was no frontline leadership other than that. We had people just walking away from the work site or that position whenever they wanted to. It was a very physically demanding position, so I knew if people came in, dressed a certain way or had done their hair, I knew that I was going to have to pick up the pace and do the extra stuff. But also helping build and put those processes together, you understood where the improvements would be at.
Right.
Second she walks through the door, I kind of walked over, shook Diane's hand, introduced myself, and then kind of did this, hey, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about the work group. I'd like to also kind of go over a few challenges, and I'd like to tell you how to fix it. And I mapped out, I think, on a whiteboard, the communication structure change. And that was the first simple fix. And then all she did, she looked at me and said, well, do you want the job? And then, the rest was history.
Because he wasn't the person who was suggested for the job.
Yeah.
There was, when I took over, they had said there was another person who had been there longer, and they said that's the person who should become the first supervisor. And he's right. He introduced himself, gave me his whole outline, and I went, yeah, I'm picking him. Like, he has a plan already, yeah. So.
And then, slowly, you're developing a plan, but you're also, there's a lot of skills, there's a lot of experiences that I got through that organization, the next organization. So that organization, obviously there were money issues and it went Chapter 11, but then move on to the next one, also another startup company. But the low-hanging fruit, it was literally on the ground. You literally just asked people to sweep the floor, and you could create such a big difference. And I enjoyed that chaos to organized, controls,
right.
All this other kind of stuff, putting in a little bit of structure. And so more experience, still just falling in love with it. And then we had the same opportunity here at GPI. So that organization also ran into some money issues. They've kind of gone back to R&D, not full-scale production, but, being involved with, the people side of it and the, helping organize things. I'm very much not just on the process, but the people. So it's kind of a multi-tiered attack that I try to do, win the hearts and minds, create a positive culture, centers of influence and stuff like that. But I love diving into stuff like that. And to be honest, I think people's more my passion. And that's why I've really fallen in love with what I'm doing. And I cannot even tell you how ecstatic I am about what I do now. Because it's not just the construction management. I have to deal with every contractor, every subcontractor, and then anybody that wants to, complain. But then on top of that, we've taken over, operations down there. So there was a lot of low-hanging fruit in operations. And so all we did was we walked in and said, hey, do you guys have this, this, and this? When we put the new phase in, you're going to need all this stuff. Well, no, we don't. Can you do it? I guess. Do we have experience with that? Yeah, sure we do. And so we just started diving in, and they keep grabbing us for our experience and the experience that I've been blessed in getting over the past however many years. I've been going into leadership since I was young, working at Salzburg Shop and Save.
There you go.
You get put up into the position, still lots to learn. Army, up to sergeant, it was either go to the board for E6 or get out and go to school. Decided to get out and go to school, became a supervisor for UPS, and then there were a few other positions that I had. I worked simultaneous jobs, and then I left all that to become a bar manager because I'd never done it before. Nice. So I enjoyed that. Again, ran out of money, so it's going to be a trend. GPI is definitely a safer place. But yeah, I've been, kind of just going through that road of growth and enjoying jumping into those positions and taking on more, and that's what led me to here. I don't know if that's the long answer, but...
I hope it is. Because it's an hour show. No, you are actually sitting on a committee that is directly influencing the diversity side of things at GPI. So can you talk a little bit about that and how it impacts all of these different communities that we're discussing, right? Not just the racial diversity, gender diversity, LGBTQ, all of those things. Just give us a little bit of an overview of what the scope and focus of that committee might be.
Are you talking about GPI Connect?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so GPI Connect is, diversity and inclusion, and something new that GPI actually started up, I think, within the last year.
Okay.
Part of what brought me to the committee, because, looking at me and hearing me, you probably think, why is this guy on a diversity and inclusion, podcast? So I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and there has been, I think coming up in it, a lot of different challenges that I have experienced, going through, and especially when you talk about manufacturing, operations, construction, and all these different very white male-dominated
Straight
Yeah,
white
straight
male.
white
Straight white male.
It's a
dominated. There's no shortage of comments the second people hear that you're part of that community. Apparently, every straight male thinks that they're a centerfold model and that you check them out in the locker room. It blows my mind some of the stereotypes that come out. So, for a long time, I really don't say it. I keep it a secret, and then when everybody else gets to talk about their spouse, I use words like spouse and significant other.
Sure.
You never truly get to know me, and I keep you out of my personal life, but that's what led me into being a part of that group, and just trying to be a part of GPI. I don't want to talk about necessarily the organization itself, but the organization we work for, they have made a very big push, and especially in the last year, on going after this diversity and inclusion to make sure that they are an organization that does support all that kind of stuff, and that they're part of this big bright world, I guess. And so, does that pretty much cover what you're?
Yeah, no, I was curious because I pay attention to it on the intranet and all those things, but you're more immersed into it, and I just was curious as to what your thoughts were on the scope. Is it going in a direction that you, being part of one of those communities, feels comfortable that they're doing the right thing, doing enough of the right thing?
I think they are doing the right thing. As far as enough, my world is here at a branch level, right? From a corporate standpoint, even anybody receives any corporate email, you're 10 times more likely to ignore that and continue with your day-to-day.
He didn't actually mean that.
No, I see. Block that out. Take two. So as far as, yes, I think we're moving in the right direction because really it's talking about it. We need to actually say the things that, if they're offensive or if somebody's not doing the right thing, or we need to talk about the different challenges, because if we don't, we're going to get the same old, status quo. It's going to stay the same way. How did I get my parents to kind of change their mind about the LGBTQ community and me, actually marrying a guy? I did it by talking to them, and I just sat them down and I said, you thought I was this fat, funny kid in high school. This is what really happened. And I told them my real story, which, with everything that went on, they were just like, oh my gosh, we had no idea.
Okay.
And then by actually being able to say it, and that's where I think GPI Connect comes in. They're allowing us to say it. They are doing things, not necessarily podcasts, but these... like little sessions
seminar.
where they
Noontime knowledge and things like that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They sit down and they're interviewing, and they pick different groups, whether it's women in the workplace, person of color in the workplace, Pride Month's coming up, so that's a big push right now, and they're doing all that stuff. But we need to start, I think, to do better. We almost need a representative inside of each one of our branches that can push it,
And that's a good suggestion. I agree with that. Yeah. Because when you think about, and Tyler, I want to talk to you a little bit, because although we have very strong women in senior leadership at the corporate level, we have women of color, we have, we really do well at that at the higher levels. But in the Pittsburgh area, in our branch, we don't do that so well, right? So when you came in here, and you've only been here 4 weeks, right? So it's
no pressure.
It's brand new. No, but when you came in, it had to be glaringly obvious to you that there weren't a lot of people that looked like you, right?
Yeah.
So what were your immediate thoughts on all that?
Honestly, I'm used to it at this point,
Okay.
so I don't necessarily think about it too much. It's just kind of like a confirmation, all right, this is where we're at, but I hope that we can grow it in a different way, and, bring in some different types of people, and I do believe that GPI is going in that direction.
Good.
As far as the conversations I've heard, I've seen some stuff, like I was on their LinkedIn page before I got hired, and I'm like looking through all the posts, and I'm like, wow, they're appreciating women in public,
Sure.
putting.
You share a lot of love. That's one thing
Yeah.
that corporate, and whether it's GPI Connect or just corporate at the branch level, they do share a lot of love. And we are blessed here with strong women, right? And 3 of them are sitting right here. And I think that, over the course of my career, I've been doing this a very, very long time. When I look at our client structure, the clients that we are pursuing right now, right? Almost to 100% led by strong women, strong, educated, and articulate and opinionated women, right? A lot of women of color. And I think that, you know, from your perspective, being new to the company and being young in the industry, right, there are not a lot of role models, right, that look like you when you look in the mirror. And that's something that, to me, I think we really need to expose our younger staff, right? I think it's incumbent upon me to get you in front of and introduce you to Keisha Powell at DC Water, right? Because Keisha Powell is the gold standard. I mean, she's as good as they come, right? I mean, this is an amazing, brilliant woman. And now Ashley's had that opportunity with several, you know, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, you know, with Kyle Druffus Wells. I mean, these are opportunities where we can step outside of the organization, okay, and not only help you to see a path forward, but also to enhance what we're trying to do with our clients.
Yeah.
Right?
And I want to add a point too, as far as like the, you know, connecting and, you know, inclusiveness and stuff like that. I mean, I feel like another step that companies can take in general with, you know, not only just acknowledging and appreciating the diversity, but allowing avenues for us to connect inside the organization. Sure. Where, you know, I mean, my last company, I know there was like thousands of people working there, but I never really got to connect. There were so many, you know, other black women that were working there.
Right.
I really didn't know how to link up with them. I couldn't find them if I wanted to, you know. I just had to look at their name and say, oh, I wonder, or if they have a picture, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Companies could do better in that sense. You know, I think that would be really appreciated among the different diverse groups as well.
And I think, you know, we do so much communications internally. We've gotten much better at communicating internally, right? Just in the last year, through, you know, Teams, chats, and different things like that in different groups. And you actually started something up that we probably should have done a long time ago with a chat for our group here. But and I appreciate that because, you know, sometimes, especially from my perspective, I'm out of the office a lot, right? So it gets difficult to keep track of what everybody's doing, you know. So, but I think, you know, when you look at what's going on in this country today, and it's very, very sad when you think about, you know, what happened in Texas just 48 hours ago and what happened in Buffalo, you know, within the last couple of weeks. The anger and honestly just blatant hatred that young people have come to, and for me, being a grandpa, right, I'm putting on my old gray-haired man hat right now. I cannot understand for the life of me how somebody 18, 19, 20 years old could become so angry, right? But when I look around, when I sit and take the time to think about it, I see that mindset in our industry, in the workplace, right? Not just in engineering, but in the workplace in general. And it concerns me that we are losing a generation, right? A generation that the two of you are part of, okay? So when you look at our young people from 18 to 30, I think they're slipping through our fingers, right? And it was just a few generations ago that group of individuals, that generation, went off and fought a war and literally saved the free world, right? I mean, that sounds dramatic, but it's true. And they were celebrated for that. They came back, and that generation, the greatest generation, right? Mm-hmm. They were celebrated. So now we have a generation of which you are a part of that is fighting a different kind of war, right? A war with racism, hatred, and all this discrimination. But it's a war nonetheless. And that's the only word you can really use to define what's happening in our society today. And instead of celebrating this generation for their resilience and for pushing back and fighting back, we're ridiculing them and criticizing them and trying to push them away. So what do you guys think that you can do as far as the way you carry out your job and the way that you conduct yourself and carry out your business to make a difference in our society today?
Big question. Yeah. You want me to start?
If you have something to say,
right. I mean,
I'm working on it.
It is a big question. I really think owning who you are
Being authentic.
Being authentic, yeah. Just being yourself and moving through that crowd, making waves, you know what I mean? People are going to get uncomfortable, but you have to be okay with that. Speaking your truth, being able to be honest with people, you know what I mean? And keep it real, you know what I mean? Like that's
show up as yourself.
And I think it's our duty as individuals to empower others that we see with potential and with representation. It's our duty to empower you and support you and help you get to where you want or need to be. And that's how we can make a bigger impact, is by being selfless and helping other people.
I agree.
And you're in an industry that allows you to do that on a regular basis, right? Every project that we do, particularly in the municipal side, the water and wastewater side, is improving somebody's life, improving somebody's quality of life, right? This plant that we're doing here in this community, right? This community is going to be profoundly better because of that plant and the way it's being designed, in a way that we're carrying ourselves out. Now, when we're going to invest in this community, we have been invested in this community. It's been good to us, and I believe that we've been good to it. So in that space of showing up authentically in who we are, do you feel any pressure to kind of, Joel had mentioned that he keeps his truth somewhat to himself on the job site, right? Because of comments and because of all these things. Because, this, especially in our country, but the world in general, is a cruel place. It's difficult, right? It's difficult. We still don't get it. Sometimes it's innocent, as we talked about earlier. There's no malicious intent. It's just, but there are other times where you have that malicious intent that's kind of hidden, it's veiled a little bit, right? So do you feel pressure to kind of pull back who you are and not show up because you don't want to have that pushback, you don't want to have that controversy? Is there any, and pressure's maybe the right word, but maybe not, but is it easy or difficult for you to show up as your true self and put yourself out there and be bold and go about your business?
Well, the reality is the three of us have a whole lot harder time hiding that than he does.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
It's the beard. I mean, it's like,
Self-preservation was a big thing for me, and especially growing up. I was taught to be a man, you had to be this, and this.
Sure.
Right? You had to have certain religions, you had to be a certain type of person, a certain race. You could not be gay. Apparently, they all should be thrown on an island and it should be bombed, and that's why Sodom and Gomorrah was blown up. I don't know. So you grow up protecting yourself. Joining the Army wasn't just because I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was me proving myself that I could be this image that I'm supposed to be.
Right.
If anybody commented and said, my brother saw a video of me in basic training, and he said I could tell by the way that this person closed the feed tray on a 240 Bravo that it was your hand. So he could tell because I kept my fingers away, it was kind of maybe a little more effeminate. So I immediately started trying to change that about myself. So, you avoid words. I've been fortunate because I can protect myself. I can hide it. Nobody down at the plant really knows that. I think there's a rumor because somebody's from Salzburg, and if you're from Salzburg, because it's a big deal if somebody comes out there. But other than that, nobody knows, and I don't go around telling anybody. I just walk around. I do my thing. But I am who I am today on self-preservation. I need to start coming out of my comfort zone. And I need to actually, because how many people, for every one of me that you do know about, how many are standing in that same group?
Well,
and if they could see a little strength.
Well, you're exactly right.
In the older generation.
I mean, you can lead by example, and that's something that I would want all of you to do. Diane does that very well. Okay, Diane leads by example. She's not a rah, let's go team type of leader, right? But she carries out her business. She shows up every day, even when she's having a bad day and doesn't want to be there. And one of the things I appreciate about her, right? I know she's going to show up every day, and she's going to lead, and she's going to set the example for you guys, right?
Absolutely.
So, but I would, what you just said, Joel, is it concerns me because you are that guy. Right? You are that guy that can carry that flag, no pun intended, right? But you can carry that flag and shine that light out there for others to follow, right? Because you have the confidence and the ability to articulate what it means to be a gay man, particularly in this industry. I mean, I get it. I've been on more than my share of construction sites. I know what you're up against, right? And Tyler, you as well. I get it. Even Ashley. I mean, I remember having a young assistant project manager when I was still actually working for a living, right? back in the day, and she was probably about your age now, and she was incredibly talented, engineer, PE, but she just got no credibility. And the contractors she would tell them to do something, right? That I asked her to tell them, and then he would come back to me and say, hey, she said do this, do that, do this, and I said, well, okay, why aren't you doing it? But again, I'm not the engineer. I'm not an engineer. I'm an engineer by vocation, not education, right? So I managed a lot of projects, but this young lady was much more smarter than me, incredibly talented, but yet they doubted her. They wouldn't take her word. They would come back and ask me, the same question. And that was very frustrating to me. And that's when I really started to understand discrimination and bias related to, gender and so on and so forth. So I would implore you to be who you are and show up at the plant, show up at the office, show up down the street, wherever you go as who you are. Because there are people out there watching you that need to see you do that. They need to see Joel show up confidently and loving himself. They need that.
And, and I relate to Joel in a way, too, with still having to protect part of yourself as well.
Right.
Because everybody's not going to get it. You're not going to change.
That's exactly right.
So some people will never respect you. You have to be able
there's
to
no doubt.
identify as well.
There's no doubt.
Like here's the space where I feel like I can be 100% authentic, or I need to dial back like 80%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to use your discernment, I feel like, in those spaces too.
Sure.
Well, I think that's what was hard, because like when Joel told me, I was like, oh, okay. Like it was no big deal. And like, so we started talking about, about Max and about, and then we would be with other people, and I'd be like, oh, well, and I'd have to catch myself, because I'm like, well, wait, who knows, who doesn't? Like it became that too. And I'm like, and it's hard, I guess, as like maybe as an ally to be like, well, why can't we just tell people? But I get it from your side. I mean, that whole protection, right?
Sure.
But it's like, I think we need to be better at being like, when we hear people be critical or make comments, we need to be able to say, hey, that's not appropriate. Like, don't
Hold them accountable.
Yeah, hold them accountable for what they're saying.
Yeah.
So.
Well, accountability is important for all of us, right?
Yeah.
We all have to be accountable. And, again, I said something to Tyler this morning that I didn't even realize how it would impact her from her perspective. And she pointed it out to me very, very politely and respectfully. And I absolutely love her that much more for doing that, because that's not who I am. Right. Mm-hmm. So we have to take care to be, I don't want to say sensitive, because we don't really want to be sensitive, but we do want to be accountable for our own words and actions.
Right.
And I would never say, oh, woe is me, but I'm now not, because I've gotten older and I'm an old white guy, right? So I've been lumped into a group that I don't respect and I don't belong in. I don't belong, right?
Yeah, right.
And one of the things that I feel that I have to do is not only to defend who I am, but also I feel when I'm with you guys, and I love you guys, I feel like I'm on alert, right, to make sure that you guys are treated properly and with respect, and that makes me sad that I feel that. I don't want to have to feel that, and maybe I'm naive. It's pie in the sky stuff. I am a child of the '60s. All of that stuff. But I want us all to be able to go out and present ourselves, not only in the workplace, but in the community, as who we are, real and authentic and true, right? I'm all about the truth. It really makes me sad. There's no other way to put it, because I love you guys and I don't want to have to defend you. I shouldn't have to defend you. I shouldn't have to defend myself. And I find myself explaining well, listen, hey, it's not me. I don't do that. That's those guys over there, but I don't do that. And
but I think even like the people we do work for, it's I hate the fact that I actually have to go, well, I can't put this person with that client. And I shouldn't have to do that.
But sadly we do.
But sadly we are still in that space of where I just know that there's certain clients I can't do it.
In all
and
of this,
even being a woman, like I've had clients come up to me and go, wow, you're I mean, literally clients like a few months ago went to me, oh, you're a woman and an engineer. How's that? I don't know. I've been doing it for 30 years. I think it's okay.
How does that work?
How does that work? Yeah. So. you know, and I let that stuff roll off my back, but it is still like it's that underlying thing of like, what
Sure.
are they really thinking then? Like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you can feel, and I've been the reverse of that. A dozen people in a room. Me. And I was the only white person. Everybody else was black, right? And I get it, right? I get it. And you know, in that space, I understood it because I grew up in the black community, right? My father was a coach and a teacher, and I wouldn't say I didn't see color, right? And it drives me crazy when people say that because yes, you do, right? But you have to understand what that means. And I was blessed that my father taught me what that means, right? So I never really understood that position until that day. And they made comments about it, right? And I laughed, but and I was uncomfortable at first, but then after we started to talk, and I realized I became comfortable, but that moment in time this was just a few months ago, so I was at 62 years old, I finally felt what that feels like. And not just to be the only black person, not just to be the only gay person, the only female, right? It hit home, you know, and that's it's something that I hope that we as a group can carry forward in not only in our hiring practices and when we look at potential candidates, because we are hiring and we need very, very talented people, right? So in our hiring practices, in the way we interact with each other, in the way that we interact with our clients and just the communities where we live, work, and play, so to speak, right? I hope that we are respectful enough of each other that we can move forward as a family and as a group, and I think we can. And I really appreciate you guys coming and doing this and being open and honest about your situations. And, you know, I think that being in this industry, being a female may be more difficult than being a person of color or being a gay man or a gay woman, because it's a very male-dominated industry. And let's face it, men are jagoffs, right? I mean, we are. It's just how we roll. We can be insensitive. We can get tunnel vision and not pay attention to what we're doing, and we can say and do dumb things. We have this incredible ability just to be stupid, right? So.
Well, and I guess, I mean, if you look at the engineering numbers, it's still only 27% female going into engineering.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, we're, you know, where if you look at college-educated men and women, there's more college-educated women, right? The number's over 50%. There's more women than there are men. But you look at it from an engineering standpoint, and we're still way the minority. Yeah. So even coming into engineering, it's not even like we have this influx of women coming in. It's still, I mean, 27% is really where it was when I graduated. It hasn't increased.
Yeah, the needle hasn't moved at all. And the irony of that is, I think that women with an engineering degree that leave engineering have more opportunities available to them than men in their male counterparts in the same situation.
Right.
You know, 5 years in, you have an engineering degree from Pitt. 5 years in, you realize, I don't like this. This is terrible. You can go out and you would be valued, will be sought after in the marketplace. Whereas men, 5 years in, that decide they don't want to do it, options are much more limited. So in that respect, that's very ironic, because it's just the opposite within the industry, right? And there's always the especially if you're an attractive female in this business, your colleagues, you always have to be on edge, because your colleagues will take advantage of how you look. Number one, they'll neglect you because of how you look. They'll look at you that way over your abilities and your background. And that's something that I don't think has really changed in the time I've been in the industry. That's always been there, and that's another needle that has not moved, but it has to move. It absolutely has to move. So I don't know if any of you have experienced a situation where you've been made uncomfortable, or Joel, you as well. You know, I mean, I've had that reverse discrimination, right? I've been put in a position where there were overtures, advances, whatever, that weren't sought or welcomed, right? And that sounds like, most men my age would say, "Whew, that's a pretty cool thing. Wow," but again, it's unpleasant because you see, if you're paying attention and you understand people, you see the other side of that. You see what more vulnerable colleagues go through.
So what's interesting is because I have been objectified in this business. I have had some bad experiences in that regard. And what's interesting to me is, this industry is all about the people, right? We talk about that all the time, and we want to support people, and it's about the people, not about, we can do the work, we can all do the work, but you want to work with the people and build those relationships. And in my experience, it's people that pretend they're your friend, and they think they can get away with it because they're your friend. And that's not okay either. And yes, we can all be friends, but we're still professionals too. And
absolutely.
Those lines get blurred in this industry sometimes. And it's hard to overcome when you're in a situation like that. It's something it's a burden I carry every single day now, because of what I've been through. And it's made me stronger, absolutely. It's made me put up more of a guard. But it's something that I want to do what I can to help no one else have to go through what I went through.
Right.
And I hope that everyone that I've worked with in all of my years can take it as a lesson to make themselves better, because that's what I want for myself. Is I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And I hope that everyone I've encountered in this work, in this line of business, can have that same goal for themselves. We all make mistakes, we're all human, but you still have to strive to be better than you were yesterday. And
That's very true.
that's what I'm going to try to do to move forward. That's all we can do. Your past doesn't define you. So
I agree 100%. And I think, having gone through something like that, there are, and I commend you for this, because there are so many opportunities for you to be mentored, and you're already a leader in this industry. I've been so impressed with you, and from the first day I met you, I've told Diane that we really need to encourage Ashley and mentor her, because you'll be the CEO of this company one day if you stay. So, but I appreciate you having gone through that and still openly and accepting mentorship from myself and other men who we've brought as we're building this team, that you can learn from and become better, right? And I hope that
it's taught me to set better boundaries. Really, that's
excellent.
Probably the best thing I've gotten out of it is learning how to set better boundaries.
Right. And I think, do you find that you are better at reading people and developing trust?
And in my nature, I'm a people pleaser, right? Like, I don't want to make anyone ever feel like unwanted or uncomfortable, or like their joke wasn't funny, because whatever, we're just here to have a good time. But I've lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay, because it's, all of this stuff is something that we want to do everything we can to not only ourselves be better today than we were yesterday, and hopefully learn something that will make us better tomorrow, but we want our team to grow the same way. We want the company to grow the same way, because we're a very small part of GPI, of what they do, right? And like Diane says, we're not even a slice on the pie yet.
Yeah, we haven't made the pie chart yet.
Well, I said something the other day. So somebody said, "What's your goal?" And I said, "Well, actually, we want to be a slice of the pie." What? But we're one of the top transportation firms in the country. We do all these things really, really well, and we're trying to build something together that is unprecedented in this particular firm. Right? We're really the only people, out of 1,700 and some people, we have less than 50 that are doing what we do and what we're trying to build. So that's a family, right? I mean, half of that is, I have children and grandchildren that make up half of that number, right? So that's not a big number in the overall scheme of things. So we absolutely must trust and respect each other, right? And that means if one of us crosses the line, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, we have to speak up, right? If we see one of our family being mistreated, being disrespected, we have to speak up. And all of us, every single one of us, has to show up authentically and truthfully in who we are.
And you know, that's a good point, John. And another perspective that I want to add to that too is something I think the company's doing, GPI is doing right now, is taking an introspective look at themselves. You know, I think every individual needs to do that as well.
Sure.
Without having to have an interaction with someone that ends up being a trial, you know,
Right.
where that person is hurt in the instance,
Sure.
and then that person has to be hurt, and then to be able to voice that for you to be able to realize.
It's a
I
good
think
point.
that we need to, like, everybody needs to take responsibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's tiring having to explain things all the time.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think having conversations like this, and this is something that I would like to see us carry forward and do on a regular basis, and include the rest of our team, you know, locally. We don't have to have Nick film everything, but but I think, you know, just getting together, you know, even one morning a month and have coffee and just have these kind of conversations. Think about how much better our country would be if we could get the people to the table, right? Then there's always a common ground. There is always a common ground. And, you know, look at the gun debate, right? I'm not anti-gun, I'm not pro-gun, and I'm not here to discuss either way. But if this side and this side just came to the table and talked to each other, okay, the compromise is there. The common sense gun legislation that this country needs is there, right? But it's just the struggle of getting these sides to come to the middle. And that's life, right? That is life. There's nothing we can't resolve amongst each other if we just sit down and respectfully talk to each other about it. To be honest about what we feel and what we think and respect each other, right? So I think we should definitely do that. Since you're
Love
the
it.
boss, you ought to probably set that up.
Well, and I think there's you know, more to it. Like whenever it comes to, you know, okay, so you're a forward thinking, you're somebody that's dealt with this before, you have a positive mindset even though you went through some stuff. You have to also you know, you have to have tolerance just the same way that you're asking for tolerance.
Right.
So you need to remember, like with my parents, my grandparents still to this day have not accepted my lifestyle, but I told them, I said, it took me 27 years to be okay with me. I'll give you 27 years. And that's just my way of saying, you don't have to be okay with this today.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
asking you to open up your mind and self-reflect.
Sure.
That's
Right. Sure.
all I'm trying to do. And we almost need to start preaching that,
Yeah.
you know, because if you can have that self-reflection, that leads way to the self-improvement, right? So
Right.
you know what? Maybe I did treat that person badly, or maybe I am being insensitive, or, you know, I acknowledge that I was brought up this way, and your past directly relates to who you are today. All of your experiences, whether you're guarded, not guarded, you know, all these different things that you are today, literally every interaction you've had has changed that
Sure.
trajectory.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and then that, you know, that leads way to the conversation, that leads way to, you know, people being able to change. But we also have to remember too, and us, you know, and especially, you know, you guys are younger. I think I'm kind of young, but we're also growing up in a different world. My dad grew up, I mean, he was born in 1939. Okay, much different world. Very, very conservative, extremely religious.
Absolutely.
And they didn't meet planet Earth like I was able to meet, and the different diversity that we have here.
Right.
Even just sitting
Right.
here at this table.
Well, you're absolutely right.
That wasn't always around. So that's just my little plug in
absolutely
there, just throwing that in there.
No, you're right, because even my generation, you know, we came through very turbulent times. Before we close, there is a topic, and I'm glad you brought this up, Tyler, because, you know, in our industry is old school, right? And we've talked about how it is a male-driven, male-dominated industry, and some old habits die hard, right? And as you said, there's language that's used, and not just you know, inappropriate or offensive words. You know, we all know what they are, but also things that are innocuous and seem innocent enough, but actually are not to some of us, right? And you have some examples of that.
Yeah, I mean, one of my college friends I went to college with, she's a woman trailblazer, engineer in the industry.
Okay.
And I just came across it yesterday, so I think I was meant to share it.
There you go.
And so yeah, just some gender biased language and alternatives that can be used to be more inclusive. Manpower, for instance. I mean, it's a simple word, but we can just say personnel.
Exactly. There you go.
Man up, tough it up.
Yeah.
Man of the hour, star of the show, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even you guys, it might not be offensive, but it's just a more conscientious way of speaking. You can
Sure,
say
absolutely.
You all.
Pittsburgh, we say y'all.
Y'all. That works. Just say y'all.
Yins.
Yins.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yins.
Y'all was maybe out Midwest.
You guys. Yeah. Yeah.
No, you
Use
guys.
all. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That's very true.
So-
Still not working.
Habit.
Yeah, but see, it's just habit, because I say that a lot. Like when I sign off on my blog, right? I say I love you guys. I mean everybody,
Yeah.
right? And it's just but yeah, maybe there are women out there that are offended by that or don't feel included in that. So maybe I need to change that. So that's a great thing, because I mean, if you
don't
know me,
really
you know
even
what I
think about
mean.
it.
But
Right,
I don't
yeah.
think about it. So I love you guys. Hey, but that's but I get it. Yeah, that's a great point.
I've noticed a change in a lot of male culture right now. So a lot of my friends, and especially since I've come out, we've all started telling each other that we love each other, almost kind of trying to change
Sure.
that word just a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
But no, and I've always done that. I think that that's the path that cures everything that ails us, right? If we can love each other regardless of our sexual preferences or the color of our skin or where we've been, right? That's what fixes everything. That's the big deal. If you can look at somebody and love them just for who they are, where they are, without any expectation, that's a big deal. And I love all of you for doing this with us and for coming and joining us. I apologize if Nick was too demanding, because he's a pretty tough dude, but honestly, I think these types of conversations are so important to not just to us and to what we're trying to do, but just to the community as a whole. And we've made a commitment, Nick and I, on the podcast, to start to have some more, I don't want to say edgy or controversial topics, but topics that are really out there, that are really hurting our community, that to try to put a more positive spin and try to find solutions that benefit everyone. Right? So thank you so much for joining us, and you probably need to get to work.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This was fun.